2 decades ago, a group of unlikely crusaders exposed massive corruption on Wall Street.
Naked short selling? Naked short selling is it's
In
not
2012, my film, The Wall Street Conspiracy, told their incredible stories.
You could actually just make money by selling shares that didn't exist.
And when you counted out all the shares being sold, there was something wrong. There were too many shares being sold each day. There was too much action in the markets.
Just in 2 weeks in July, the fails to deliver were $17 billion.
Everyone knows the problem. We know it's all about money. It's all about Wall Street making money at the expense of an honest stock market.
In Texas, simple version, we call that stealing.
I never thought 20 years later the entire world would still be crying out for justice.
Will someone take action on behalf of individual investors?
20 years later, in the year 2023, the fight for a fair and honest Wall Street continues.
I began to get bashed by these people.
Can, because that protects them against anybody looking into what they're really doing.
They wouldn't do anything about it because you can't balance the world.
On hundreds and hundreds of small, young companies.
And the more I dug, the more everything confirmed
It's
it.
just two sides, the upper world and the underworld.
So I would say to myself, I'm one of the dirty dozen.
Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not the next day, but someday and soon, we're going to see a revolution.
The ruin and the harm of this is not over. And as God is my witness, I'm more resentful about something that hurts my children and my grandchildren than I am about something that happens to me. And our responsibility is to make sure that the world is safe for them.
Support and the love and the family, and even Mark said the other day, it's the new Dirty Dozen. And not the new, but like the expanded version.
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing we should say beginning this show is that we respect and value everyone who's been on this journey with us for 23 years. I stopped off in 2012 and never thought I'd be back again. And it took a lot of courage and a lot of support and the partnerships of Mark Falk and Joni Lee Clark as my producing partners on Down the Rabbit Hole. Like we're the Three Musketeers. And I could never have done it without you guys. Never, ever, ever. And so thank you. The Wall Street Conspiracy thanks you. And then with meeting Marcel and Darren Andrew and Dusty and the WestView News, there's just been this love. I didn't know what to expect. I was quite nervous, honestly. And it was just love and support and encouragement for the rabbit hole, you know? And so I feel really confident right now that it is the revolution. And I would like to take a moment to honor all of us collectively, Darren Saunders, John O'Quinn, John Cerubo, and Mr. Harmer, because their spirits are with us. You know, all the people that have continued to carry on. Wes Christian, Suzanne Trimbath, she wrote 2 books. If I had them here, I'd plug them for her, but I don't. Mark, you know, and no one ever really gave up. And that's what made me make this decision. Joni knows I wasn't going to do it. I didn't know what to do. And so, you know, it's an amazing journey we're all on together, but I feel it's the people's journey. Yeah. It's beyond us anymore. Absolutely. And the movie, you know, all of us collectively, and it's a family. It's not, you know, there's no individual anymore about this. It's not about me. It's beyond that. And I really feel a lot of gratitude right now. And I feel hope. I do. I really feel hopeful that the future will be bright for our children. And this just cannot continue on. And the one thing that made me, when I pondered all this, you know, over the long summer months, and, just sitting in nature, I was like, why am I doing this? What would be my real reason? And I said, to have a legacy of something that matters. you know, what's my, if this is what my life's purpose ends up being, amongst being a mother, I mean, that's number one, then so be it, you know? So thank you all. And I grace you and thank you for allowing us to have this opportunity to have this conversation on your show today, because I know everyone is blossoming and growing and benefiting from this. And that's what gives me the strength and the courage. And I also want to say one thing for anyone out there listening. I am one of the most transparent people and honest people, and I will never, ever, ever misrepresent the truth. That I will not do. And that is the core of who I am. And that is very vital to the rabbit hole. We all are authentic, genuine, true people. And we, like this, what we received this weekend was just a little nuggets of what we can put in the rabbit hole. I mean, we received this beautiful story this morning from somebody about their life and how it kind of went upside down and they had to file bankruptcy. And like, you realize, like, how is this affecting the everyday person who isn't really aware of Wall Street or this type of conversation? Like when Dusty and I were talking about it last night, and I said, what's going on in like other countries where women are in like cement huts and baking bread and raising children, and how it does affect everybody. And Joni's real big on this, and she has that voice and that perspective because she's an activist on a global scale. Mm-hmm. And so I think all of us together, it's like a big heart. You know, I got heart emojis all weekend, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I never thought in this greedy, toxic, quadrillion-dollar fraud global thing that's going on, that there would be love. I was very surprised by the love. And so I thank you all, whoever's listening. I have not plugged this. I'm just sitting here. Thank you for the love. And the rabbit hole is everybody's heart. And I could cry. I really could. Thank you. So take it away. That's all I have to say. I really just believe in this, and I believe in the truth.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you all for.
I think we all appreciate you and Joni and Mark as well for, you know, taking a stand and helping, you know, trying to help people and bring this to people's attention, because most times people don't seem to understand how serious this is, and that this does affect people around the entire world, even those that aren't directly invested in the stock market. You know, the issues going on in finance are directly related to the success or the demise of many people around the world, you know, and their financial well-being and their livelihoods, even if they don't really seem to understand it at face value. But yeah, all the markets are correlated, you know, and that includes the economies around the world for those people, even in the poorest of countries that don't have a dime in the stock market. You know, it affects us all. So thank you for taking the time to make the films, both you, Joni, and Christina, and Mark, and all of us here as well, and everyone out there listening. I think that's why it's very important to for people to look towards the Wall Street Conspiracy movies, #1, and soon to come the sequel, you know, Down the Rabbit Hole. Okay, I'd like to briefly read the intro to the Wall Street Conspiracy from the Indiegogo, and that goes as follows: The Wall Street Conspiracy 2, Down the Rabbit Hole. In the beginning, over a decade before The Big Short, before the GameStop scandal, and the countless David versus Goliath movies it spawned, there was the Wall Street Conspiracy. In 2012, the Wall Street Conspiracy chronicled the stories of a handful of unlikely crusaders who unraveled one of the greatest monetary schemes in history. Activists, economists, CEOs, investors, even high-powered attorneys sounded the alarm about a then little-known stock trading practice called naked short selling. Slowly, more and more people heard the warning. This is a crack in our market that could bring down the country. But those in power chose to deliberately ignore it until it was too late. Even after the global collapse of 2008, lawmakers and regulators deliberately turned a blind eye to the massive fraud being perpetrated on the American people and those worldwide. 20 years later, it's business as usual, and absolutely nothing has changed. The schemes are increasingly more complex, sophisticated, and global. What if the GameStop and AMC naked short selling scandal of 2021 and the recent volatility in the stock market are just the tip of the iceberg? And what if there's an economic disaster looming on the horizon that could affect not just every family in America, but cause shockwaves around the world? Would you listen then? The Wall Street Conspiracy 2, Down the Rabbit Hole, continues the saga with new financial schemes, epic battles against the most powerful forces in the world, and once and for all, tells the absolute truth about how financial fraud affects every single one of us each and every day of our lives. Written by the one and only Mr. Mark Falk.
Amen.
That.
Amen to that.
When I hear it read, I'm like, oh, that actually sounds pretty good. You know, it's a good description. But it is literally just the truth. I mean, it is nothing but what has been happening for 20 years. And it's I mean, obviously longer than that, but it started skyrocketing with the growth of the hedge funds, when the hedge funds went from, you know, up into billions and billions and billions, and they grew exponentially. I think it was a 400 times growth from 2000 to around 2010. And
Yes,
that's insane. Yeah. And so we as a system created this monster, and we have yet to do anything to rein it in or to make it operate properly. And I'm shocked at the growth of it. I had, like Joni, you know, and Christina, we were kind of off doing some other things, watching this happen a little bit, but from a distance. And I've been over here doing justice reform in Oklahoma and Oklahoma County and working on films about that, and went to the ML King breakfast this morning. And I had mentioned earlier before the show that I was approached by our new district attorney, our new county sheriff, and our new jail administrator, all of them wanting to sit down and have meetings with us, with our organization in Oklahoma County. So I'm feeling that same optimism, because we pushed at that for 2 years, and suddenly, and we had 16 deaths in our county jail last year, the deadliest jail in America, which is why I focused on that so much. But the big message and takeaway from that is that, as usual, a handful of people, a small group of dedicated people, can absolutely change the world. And that's a real thing, you know, but they don't do it alone. They do it just because we're the town criers, I think, in a way. And the people that you guys work with, the people, you know, behind the AMC shareholders, the GameStop shareholders, all of the people who have made or lost money are the ones who are going to push this across the finish line. And this time, this almost sounds like a sequel movie blurb, but it's time to finish the job. The 10, 15, 20 years ago. And that's where we're at. We don't want to do this every 2 decades. I'm too damn old for that.
Amen to that. It's the Mandela effect, right? As Nelson Mandela said, we can change the world and make it a better place. It is in your hands to make a difference. And right now we are that group, and we are those people. Everybody out there who's invested in the stock market, who's made or lost money recently because of the manipulation that's occurring, it is in your hands. You know, we are just here trying to shine a light on the issues that are happening, because nobody else will. I don't see anybody else stepping up to do what Mark does, what Joni, what Christina, what Darren's doing, you know, what George is doing, putting it out there on the news and in social media and in papers where it matters, where it can reach people young and old. The Wall Street Conspiracy sequel, Down the Rabbit Hole, is now has an Indiegogo campaign up that was just released here just yesterday or so, in order to raise some funds for the movie. And I know it's going to be really important and paramount to people to help this movie get off the ground. You know, I, as a retail investor, am about to, as soon as we're done here, I'm going to hop on here and I'm going to make a donation. I have yet to do so. But
Thank
this is
you.
a movie by Joni Clark and Christina Lee Copeland and Mark Falk. They are the producers and the writers of this film. And the documentary that you guys made back in 2012 just absolutely blew my mind. Important to help open people's eyes to what's going on with this film. And in order to do so, I think that just a small donation of even $1 would be huge. What do you guys think? I think even if everybody donated $1, they could easily hit their goal.
Yes, we just want people's hearts, minds, soul, and attention. And if everybody gave $1, you know, and told your friends and really spread the word and told your story, we're a place for you to express what happened and reveal things that you didn't realize really happened to you. You know, you think it's this or that, but no, it was the naked short selling that destroyed this and beyond, and that it's so unchecked right now. So, you know, I just want to encourage everybody, look at it. If you can give $1 or whatever you can give, please do. We want your stories as well. We want as much information to bring to the light of day, because millions of people were hurt and destroyed, millions. And it's only continuing right now, every moment, as you guys know. We have to put a stop to it. Educate, inspire, and action. Action is the name of the game, and it's where the most fun is. So,
yeah, Joni, I was going to ask you, what inspired you to make the Wall Street Conspiracy? But I think you've pretty much summed it up in a nutshell.
I was part of the original. I was an Occupy Wall Streeter. Yeah. I was down there protesting and filming, especially being an organic gardener, farmer, cowgirl. Okay. So I've been down there since then and probably ran into Darren at that point because he looked so familiar. So that's me. I was there, and you talk about, I thought we'd take over the world. Everybody would finally get a fair shake. And be able to be a real person again, and bring your dreams to the table, take care of your families, your communities, build it. You know, something happened when I was down there, and they cut off our power. And I was in sort of the middle part of thousands of people. I just happened to be, because I was filming.
Yeah.
So what we did was, maybe, I don't know if you got, what we were doing is we started in the middle, and what our speech was to be like, okay, everybody, our power's off. I'd say a few words, and then that would go to the next group of people surrounding us, and they would broadcast it. So we became human microphones in thousands of people. It was so cool. Anyone that was ever there, it was like being in the Garden of Eden. It was so fabulous, so empowering, like, you know, people connecting to people, our physical bodies amplifying our voices and our message. I want to put that in this movie.
I love that. How about yourself, Christina? I know you touched on that a little bit earlier, you know, as to leaving a legacy. You know, what inspired you in the first place to make the Wall Street Conspiracy and now the sequel?
Oh, well, that's a good one. I was like, quick story. I moved to New York City in '85. I was so into, like, I wanted to be an actress. So I was in film, television, theater for 2 decades, studied with the best of the best, did my thing. And I ended up needing a job while you're acting. So my stepfather moved to New York to work with Prudential Securities. He started at E.F. Hutton in Michigan, where I was born and raised. And then he went to Shearson Lehman, and he cold called. He made his way up. He wasn't born rich, but he was smart. And so he ended up at Prudential, and he was in the Wall Street Journal, and he was very successful in the 90s, but he needed a personal assistant. Dusty will love this. It is West Village townhouse. So I'm a West Village girl, there's no joke about what it's so amazing when we get into the newspaper, how all that happened. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just like going home. So anyway, long story short, I worked with him and was doing my theater stuff. And he came home one day and he said, I'm not going to be at Prudential Securities anymore. I said, oh. And he said, I'm going to start my own hedge fund. And I said, okay. And he said, I want 1 year of your time. And I said, okay. And the next day I was on Wall Street and he wanted me to get my Series 7. He, you know, it was like a real big deal. And I was like, I went through the interviews. And I was like, no, this is just not going to be my cup of tea. So I went and I put together the hedge fund with my father, not as a serious player in the hedge fund, just as more of his administrative assistant. But I went through the process. I did the year and I said, I'm done. This is just not for me. I just don't get all of this hoopla over money that you can't see, you can't touch, you can't taste. I felt the greed, you know, it wasn't resonating with me at all. So I left. But then I was like, well, and I went back to doing, you know, film and television to support myself. But I was like, well, I had a little business vibe going on. You know, I was probably all of 28 at that time. And so I started Brown Settle Films. That was 23 years ago. I founded Brown Settle Films because a lot of film people in my world were writing scripts. And I had a really cool contact who I spoke with this morning, and we all know who that is, about pitching scripts. And they were reading them. And then I thought, well, gosh, this is cool. Everyone else is getting feedback. Why don't I do something? So I said, Oliver Stone has not written a movie about Wall Street. There was no Wall Street anything. It was sort of just like a quietness. And it was about 2000. So I was like, I'll just scratch something out. So I started writing, and it was a cold night in January. And I walked up the street on the Upper East Side because I'm super into hiking, as many of you know. And I was taking a walk and I was thinking, and I wanted to get warm. And I didn't want to go to like a active place. And I saw this beautiful Italian restaurant, which was quiet and peaceful with like Christmassy twinkle lights, you know, that type of vibe. And I'm like, oh, that's good. I can just sit there and, you know, do my thing. I went in, sat down, there was nobody around. And I ordered whatever it was. And the bartender was Darren Saunders.
Wow.
That was it. And he said, you know, we started talking, and he said, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm writing a movie about Wall Street. And that was it. And Darren said, I
game over.
That was it. And I'm,
oh, really?
And I said, oh, yeah, you know. And he said, I gotta talk to you. So that was how it happened. And then so Darren and I met in the West Village at this cute little place around the corner from the WestView News called Tartine, which is still there, for a chicken pot pie. And we would go and have our chicken pot pie. And what happened was Darren had the true story, his story, and Virogen and all of that. And then I had fiction, like Sharon Stone, you know, all the good stuff. You know, I was writing that way, but he was in the truth of it. So we collaborated and co-wrote a screenplay fairly quickly. I would say within 6 months. You know, we met every week for chicken pot pie, and I would have a notebook just like now, and Darren would give me all the good ingredients, and then I would go write it in. And we wrote Blue Chip, a drama thriller loosely based on the truth of this fraud that I knew nothing about. Darren was the one who knew all about it. Now, meanwhile, Darren is still being Darren, I guess. You know, I wasn't that aware of it. I mean, he would say, I'm going to take a baseball bat and go beat them up. And I was like, Darren, no. You really can't do that. You need to tone it down. And so we did this, and we sent it to the studio in LA. It was like 2002, which is still part of our arena now. And they loved it. They were like, there was the one script they liked, but they said, we don't believe the fraud. And Darren and I were like, oh, you know, and the only thing we had to go on at that time was John O'Quinn's article in Forbes magazine. That was really all there was, that you could factually say, okay, here's something. And I remember ordering like, dozens of copies of this. I was like, well, this is really real. It's really real. And then the Bloomberg piece, we discussed yesterday that Gary Matsumoto had put out the phantom shares with West Christian. And was Patrick Byrne on that show, guys? I have the copy of it, and but who has a? I think he was, or it was Rod Young. But remember there was something else that was
Young. Patrick came a little bit later. He came in around middle of 2004, and we were already covering the issue. And I'm not even certain who approached him, but one of our group approached him, and he didn't believe it. And he talks about that in the first movie. If everybody watches Wall Street Conspiracy, he didn't believe it. And then it was laid out for him. Well, here's the things that happen next, because everybody probably now, the people with AMC and GameStop, they understand that there's this is a very specific type of fraud, and it's a very specific series of events. And you can kind of watch the same scenario play out over and over and over and over again in thousands of companies. So it was probably Rod Young, because he was early to the game, and he was working with West Christian was representing him, and John.
Yeah.
Time. So.
And what was that show they pulled? Remember, Mark? Like it was supposed to be. It's in the movie. It's in the movie. They were.
Yeah, it was Dateline. I think it was due. It was Dateline.
Yes,
I believe
Dateline.
Due to air 5 minutes before it was going, and then they put the singer on, and then a later date they showed 9 minutes, which was really watered down, talking about Eagle Tech, but it was basically saying there might be an issue. It was so watered down, it was crazy.
Yeah,
I see it on YouTube.
I spent about probably 6 months. I found out who the producer of that piece was, and I don't want to say I began to harass them online, but I began to harass them online.
Bravo.
So much so that she began to message me, and she said, no, we're just postponing it. We want to get it right. And it's going to be a 2-part series. So 2 full episodes at Dateline. And then they said, well, we can't do it this week because this happened. Oh, wait, now the Pope died. And now this thing happened. And it kept getting pushed back. Finally, I gave out her information, just her email. I didn't dox her or anything, but I gave out her work email. And she got bombarded with emails. So the same thing was going on then that I suspect is going on now with a lot of the people. They were not only hungry for the truth, they were desperate for people to just listen to them. And then finally, here we thought, oh, it's going to be this week. It's going to be this week. And she promised me that. And she resigned. I think she ended up resigning over this piece because it was killed. It was killed by the powers that be at NBC and even above them. They got marching orders. And then they said, it's going to be this week. And then here comes Ruben Studdard, the American Idol interview. And eventually, as you said, Darren, they did about a 9-minute thing. And they said, well, he got attacked by something called naked short selling. And it's really complicated. And we don't really have time to explain it. So we'll just talk about his company. And that's it. They mentioned the phrase once. And that was it. And that was when we knew that the media was bought and sold, and we were not going to get justice through the media. We were pushing Congress. That's when I was talking to John Harmer. He had reached out to me behind the scenes. And eventually we found out we're not going to get justice in Congress. We're not going to get justice through the SEC. And finally, we thought maybe we would get justice when the big banks themselves began to devour each other like piranhas, but no, they didn't care. They were happy to kill each other off, and may the most powerful crook win, became the mantra. That all passes, and they're like, okay, business as usual, so everybody should understand that we went through an epic battle. I mean, it was an epic battle, and we kept thinking we're winning, and no, we're not. But I think what we didn't have then that you guys have now is there were these little message boards where people grouped up, and it would be a couple of hundred people. Well, we didn't have Twitter. Facebook wasn't really a thing. Instagram wasn't really a thing. The Reddit, you weren't able to take your message and blow it up internationally organically. And we didn't have that ability to go viral. We were sitting around pushing our information around in a wheelbarrow, trying to get people to just pay attention to it. So I think that's also what makes the fraud worse. Greater technology, the ability for the quants to come in and design programs that, the crooks are sitting in the back room smoking cigars, and the programs are now robbing everybody. That's horrible. But on the plus side, you have that ability to, through the viral ability of information to just spread, to get the word out much quicker than we did, and I'm counting on that to work in our advantage this time around. So,
well, just quickly to go back on that dateline that was which you can go and find that out for everybody watching. The company that was referred to legal technology at the time, groundbreaking. Today, you know it as Google Talk. So that company that they went after, naked shorted to bankruptcy, and the stories both in the Wall Street conspiracy and the dateline that was pulled. But that company, they then bankrupted that, took that technology in the way that it all works, which we'll cover over the next few weeks and months, and definitely within the film. Go and watch the Wall Street conspiracy, and you'll know exactly what they do to people that come up with brilliant ideas that can all of us advances. Okay, on this particular occasion, it was Google Talk. Virogen was cancer curing. So there's a lot more to this than just losing money. And today we've got 5 to 10 million people, 5 to 10 million that call themselves apes or retail investors for the bigger, wider world. And when you see this video, there's 5 to 10 million behind getting the message, shining a light for everybody to be able to see why we feel the way we do, and we're doing the things that we're now doing.
Absolutely. It's grown to the point where it's not just one person or a few people anymore. I think it's everybody together combined. All these investors, retail investors that have spent so many years watching their money be manipulated on the markets, and have really began to stand up and do the due diligence required to prove that this stuff is actually happening. And that's exactly what's occurred on Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, and everything in between. The community of retail investors has come together by, happenstance of the fact that we all happen to be invested in the same stocks, and these stocks are being extremely heavily shorted. There's all sorts of different kinds of manipulation occurring, spoofing of prices, putting up fake orders and then canceling before they occur, marking short positions as long positions, as Wes Christian mentioned on his last interview. This is all very real and very easy for these hedge funds and these market makers to do. And then when there's no shares left, the market makers, in the name of liquidity and because it's legal, are able to create short exemptions and issue synthetic shares that are literally printed out of thin air, but exceed the float of a stock, the float being the total number of shares many times over. So these are very serious problems that we're just kind of glazing over here quite simply. But these are things that hedge funds and market makers have a huge incentive to continue because of the massive profits that happen. And when a company like Virogen is shorted into the ground in a bankruptcy, all of these securities that were sold but not yet purchased by these short hedge funds, they don't have to be purchased. And all of those profits are tax-free. 100% tax-free. So why is it that a company can sell securities? How about this is a question for you, Mark? Why is it a company can sell securities and not have to purchase them back, or even, file taxes on those gains if the company goes bankrupt. Do you happen to know any insights on that?
Well, it was going on back when we were covering it as well. And the idea of it was that if you literally killed the company, then there was no exchange, there was no official record of you having to buy those shares back and cover it. So they were able to sneak those profits in between the cracks. So the key to it was that they killed the company. And that's why they fought so hard a lot of times to literally destroy the companies, because if they had to cover, then it goes on to the books. I say it goes on to the books. We all know that they hide money in 100 different ways. At one point I had found out from a couple of people messaged me and said, well, this is really weird. Our shares are now being traded on the Berlin Stock Exchange, but we don't know anything about it. And I started researching that, and I was just writing on this little blog, and eventually there were 1,000 companies that were listed on the Berlin Stock Exchange with the intent of bypassing the American market. So that allowed them to bypass a lot of rules. We got several hundred companies to withdraw from the Berlin Stock Exchange. And it was a big deal. So that's what they do. They create these alternative paths to clearing, and now it's called X-clearing, where you're literally clearing outside of the system. And once you're out of the system, the American system and the DTC, as crooked as it is, at least in theory, there's a record of those trades. So they hide the trades in the same way that they hide money in Cayman Island bank accounts. Same thing, exact same thing.
That was the next significant Berlin Wall coming down.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, depository receipts are a major form of manipulation, even though most people don't realize that. Yeah, both American and overseas depository receipts are greatly abused, and they're supposed to be held within a certain brokerage, such as Citibank, et cetera, JP Morgan, for the shares to be traded offshore. But oftentimes they're not even properly held there as well. But the level of manipulation occurring is really outstanding. And you guys mentioned that NBC was bought and sold, right? We already know that. Have you guys ever been approached by anybody trying to buy your silence?
I was threatened a lot. Nobody made me any good offers. But I was threatened. In my case, and it's the same way now, as I'm doing stuff in Oklahoma and on the national level in justice reform. I guess I'm so mouthy and outspoken that they assume that they can't buy me, so they're more likely to shove me off a cliff somewhere, or
I'm sorry to laugh, but you're probably right.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, because when I had people tell me things that I knew were wrong, I just became an amplifier. I just went, okay, I'm going to tell everybody that. So I think it didn't take them long to figure out, if you're going to approach me and try to bribe me, the whole world's going to know it tomorrow. So no, I didn't get any good offers at all.
I understand that. Anybody that would like to help support Down the Rabbit Hole in the pre-production and production phases, please go to the Indiegogo.com for the Wall Street Conspiracy sequel to Down the Rabbit Hole, and donate $1. They're not asking for much. If everyone that's seen the first movie would just donate $1, they would hit their goal extremely quickly. And we've got just a few days left here of the Indiegogo, under 28 days as of this moment, in order for them to try to reach their goal. So let's do everything we can. I'm going to go on there and I'm going to donate significantly more than $1, but they're not asking much of you guys, and they're not doing it to line their pockets, but simply in order to share this information with others, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
For the 5 to 10 million people that, within this play being a number of stocks that we believe have been heavily naked shorting. In time, Wall Street Conspiracy shows you how and what they're doing. down the rabbit hole is also going to emphasize what that means, how you lose, even if you haven't been an investor in the market. The two films together, 10 years apart, the significance will become apparent, and the reason why it's so important that we hopefully do share it. Regarding the donate a dollar, Dad, donate a dollar, Dad. We've all got dads. It impacts everybody, and you will come to understand. We've talked about some things that might not know about. Hopefully people that are not investing will sit down and watch this. 5 to 10 million people in our community, known as apes. That's how we call or relate to each other. We're apes. We're fighting something that's worthy of fighting. Now, 5 to 10 million of us, show you 10 people, there's a film that can explain it, that you can sit down at your leisure, take your time to understand why naked short selling, a cancer in the market, affects all of us. It would be a good gift for dads. And there's a lot of dads out there. And there's 5 to 10 million of us trying to warn everybody, mums, dads, brothers and sisters. But a campaign to get a film that isn't easy, but is most definitely worthwhile with your help, is something that you can remember for your entire life, as something that everybody will come to understand was not only incredibly worthwhile, but was long overdue. We're all losing. When you come to understand why, that dollar will probably be the best dollar you ever spent. So if you can, it would be awesome if you do.
Yeah, Wolfie, thank you for saying that. And I'd like it to be publicly known that I've been approached multiple times by various sorts of crypto exchanges and mainstream media, and they've attempted to buy me. I've been approached by companies like Seeking Alpha in different kinds of agreements and forms in which they've requested me to push their program and push their websites and things like that. But I had no interest in that, and I told them to basically have a great day, in a few more words. So yeah, they are definitely approaching people out there that have podcasts and different kind of news sources in order to try to buy them and to try to buy their silence, I would say. That being said, we just discussed NBC in the way that they were kind of forced to not to share the information, and instead Dateline was showing things about Ruben Studdard, and such. But now we've got the situation going on with the Wall Street conspiracy. Now we've got Mr. George Capsis here, publisher of the WestView News, and he is the former head of communications for IBM. He is the former consultant for the United States Council for International Trade. George has been directly responsible for opening schools, planting hundreds and hundreds of trees in the world, and doing a lot of things to really help the community and the world as well. As the publisher of WestView News, he has helped share the Wall Street conspiracy and the new trailer, as well as some of the articles here by Mr. Mark Falk, such as this one, the Wall Street Insiders and Your Vanishing 401k. And these things are very important and imperative for people that are not on social media to read. So the fact that the voice of the West Village, WestView News, is sharing this information on print that is going, nationwide, is extremely important. And here, Mr. Capsis has been, the publisher of WestView News for over 2 decades. And sir, I would like to say thank you very much for joining us today. Can you tell me a little bit about what's going on over there? I've heard there's a bit of an issue with but almost even like a hostile takeover, attempts at a hostile takeover, I should say.
Dusty, who is very much a campaigner for your cause, brought it to my attention, and we printed not one but 2 articles on the front page of our newspaper on the Wall Street conspiracy. So I am just learning, but I am thoroughly convinced that what you described is taking place. And I very much want to help you to get the word out. And really, we were talking earlier, and I said it's about time we took the paper with the article to Wall Street. Wall Street is only 30 minutes away from where I'm sitting right now.
Mhm.
And I would like to be able to have Wall Street respond to questions. that
Good
you
idea.
So well articulating.
That would be a fantastic idea. I'm not sure the kind of response you're going to get. I wouldn't be surprised if it was overly negative from, the Wall Street, the people on Wall Street, since this is their bread and butter. They make a lot of money off of these things, but I would love to hear what they have to say. As in my opinion, there's no real good excuse, if they say, the creating short exemptions is good for the market by creating synthetic shares in the name of liquidity. It's diluting people's positions. It's destroying companies, and it's putting people's 401ks and IRAs, thrift savings plans, and stock investments, just draining them down into the ground, is beating them down repeatedly. And it's happened with one company after the next. And it's something that I think a lot of retail investors, such as those holding meme stocks, for example, are holding their shares in their companies and buying more, specifically because they're tired of seeing that happen to companies, and they want to see the shorts get their comeuppance. I know that Wall Street is not happy about this, so I would very much love to see what kind of responses that you get from Wall Street if you share the WestView News articles with them, sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Would you mind touching briefly on what's the situation going on with WestView, if it's not asking, too much personal information there?
Well, I don't know whether you're interested in my
Yes.
battle.
Absolutely,
But,
we're interested.
I have been publishing this paper for 21 years. And an attorney he is the Democratic district leader. And he has been running for office for at least 20 years unsuccessfully. Has made a bid to try to take control of my paper. To be in a newspaper with an extremely independent voice is difficult. And first, you have to be very right in what you say. And you have to articulate your beliefs very lucidly. And here, well, in New York, it's true all over the country. You are characterized before you even say a word. And we try to be extremely independent and express, whenever possible, facts. And that's been our position since the very beginning. The Wall Street question, which we have featured, as I say, on the front page for 2 issues. And we will again tomorrow when we go to press at about 7 o'clock.
Thank you for that.
So I
Thank you.
congratulate you people for your long battle. I hope to become more articulate as I understand it better. Oh yes, Dusty has one good story. I know that she told. One of our staffers was working on this problem, and she announced that she was a victim. Dusty, you want to tell a story?
Well, one of the girls who works for the paper came and saw the front cover, and she was shocked to say that she had $37,000 in her trading account, and after they short sold the AMC stock, she went down to 3,000 and change. And she's a young mother with 2 children, and that's her life savings. And she wanted George to know there was this important group of people out there. And she said, I'm not important. I'm just a little person. There are big investors who've lost millions and millions of dollars. And George said, no, you're the one that's important, because you can't afford to lose millions of dollars. And people don't realize it's the everyday Americans who think, well, I'm not invested in the market. It's not my problem. Well, where is your pension? Where is your 401k? The first thing that George did after seeing Christina's movie was call my broker. I said, it's 11 o'clock at night. Get my broker on the line. And doing a series, he wants to educate our readers. He'd like to let them know, what do you even ask your broker? What are these companies that they're short selling? How do you figure out if you've been a victim? And we were talking about putting together a petition and letting people come to the paper and sign that petition and tell the stories. A lot of you who are listening out there are victims, and you all have a story. Some of you may be living on your mother's couch, you know, with your 3 children because you lost everything in the market because of this. And I think amplifying the stories, banding together, and using WestView as a tool. This paper, it's distributed in one of the most important neighborhoods in Manhattan. He distributes to every door from 14th Street to Houston and 5th to the river. The Times, the Post, the Daily News, they all crib off his stories. And, you know, they call him the godfather of the village. And he really has done wonderful things. He's fearless. He's, you know, he's known for slapping politicians and opening schools, and really he's the defender of the little man. If you have a problem and you're a little old lady, you call George and he fixes it somehow. So I'm hoping that he'll be able to use the pages of his paper to help us all.
I think that'd be fantastic. I'd like to make it publicly known, and I'd like you to inform the employee there at your paper that there are millions of people that are invested in these companies, AMC and GameStop, MMAT, BBIG. I can go on for an hour naming them all, so I won't name them all. And these investors, such as myself and Darren Arnold here and others, we continue to buy and hold that stock. And even though we've taken losses, we've also made significant amounts of money the last few times that there was margin calls on those stocks, like in January and June of 2021. And we're very confident that it's only a matter of time as the current situations in the economy and in financial markets continue, that it's only a matter of time before a further margin call and a liquidity crisis leads these stocks to another situation in which that they run up to new all-time highs. So I do tell investors to stay strong in the markets and to not to capitulate to the short sellers, because that's what they want. They want people to get scared. They want them to sell their positions and realize their losses and move on to other stocks, so that they do not have the opportunity to make back their money and then some when these margin calls actually occur. We've seen it happen before with companies like Volkswagen in 2008. A month after the global financial collapse, Volkswagen ran to new all-time highs. And that company was only owned by Porsche, the majority owned by Porsche, around 55% of the float. Now, with AMC and GameStop, we own over 90% of each individual float, respectively, as retail investors. And retailers aren't like Porsche. We're not going to settle with the government. We're not going to settle with the market makers and the short hedge funds. We are in it to crush them for trying to crush us. People are taking a stand, and people are tired of losing their investments and their 401ks and their life savings to those short hedge funds. So I truly appreciate you, George and Dusty, for helping retail with the WestView News to take back control of their investments, because that's what this is all about. So I applaud you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If I can make a shameless plug for George. This is George's 95th birthday. And
happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
It's his 95th birthday, and it's unfortunate that this hostile takeover from this attorney and 2 former staff members has happened at this time. But he putting out a big fat January-December issue, and it's going to be out tomorrow. And if anybody would like to go to westview.news.org, you can see a PDF. You can find Mark's article on the cover last month. And if you want to go and sign up and get a subscription, we're going to be covering this article for the next however long, and you'll be able to have something to throw on the coffee table and show your friends and neighbors. And you don't have to live in New York to be a New Yorker and follow what's going on. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing, that way to gift yourself and George for his birthday. So you can find him at westview.org.
Absolutely. I've got it up on the screen right now so people can get an idea of what it looks like. It's a fabulous publication from what I'm seeing. And yeah, I definitely encourage people to go to westview.org, sign up, get the paper. If it's something that you're interested in, it definitely would be a good coffee table read for, clients and friends and family and things like that. From a non-mainstream media news source. Is that right? You guys aren't bought and sold like NBC, right?
Right. There's no buying George. And he wants your stories. If you're out there, have a good story, send it to him.
Great.
If I could just add, George, it was a pleasure to meet you this evening. I'm aware of the newspaper. I'm all the way over in the UK. And I'm aware a little bit about your story through the involvement with Mark and watching what you've been doing more recently, I have to say. I'm a believer in people, and you, sir, are an inspiration. So to hear what you've said tonight, and as modest as you are, I'm sure people that will watch this video and listen to what you said like I did will appreciate when we see a hero. And for what you're doing and the fight that you've had, and I'm sure there's been great highs, but you'll have had to have gone through your lows. I can see that. In you, I see an inspiration. I want to thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice.
I just want to say, I'm sitting here in front of a plate of oranges. These oranges were sent to me by Sarah Jessica Parker, who's a great fan of my newspaper. So I hope that I am able to convince her of the importance of what you are trying to do, and hopefully she will articulate that in an article to the paper. So I thank you very much for the privilege of being able to talk to you, very capable people who are doing a lot more than I'm doing. And I hope we can cooperate and get the story out. And when you get to New York, you're welcome to come to 69 Charles Street, which, interestingly enough, was the early home of Sinclair Lewis. And he wrote his first successful play in this building, very close to where I am sitting right now. So let us hope that this building, my newspaper, is the start of a bigger voice for your mission. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, George.
Thank you very much, George. You know what I'd
Thank
like people
you,
to know?
George.
Thank you so much, George, and happy birthday. If you're watching this right now and you've got a story that you'd like to share, please go to westview.org and submit your story as a retail investor. I don't care what stock you're in, but submit your story to Westview News. And George and Dusty may just help publish that in the Westview newspaper in order to share our information. Everybody matters, from the biggest to the smallest retail investor. Truly. Thank you very much, George. Before we started this meeting, George let me know that he would like us to do that. So this is not unsolicited here. You know, George advised us that if you guys would please feel free to submit your stories to the Westview News, that they will do their best to try to publish those that they can. In addition, we're also going to try to work on a petition in order to enact legislation to help stop the naked shorting, because buying and holding is great. It's doing a lot for these stocks. It's preventing them from going into bankruptcy, at least for some of them, but we can do more as retail investors. We can do more. I can donate $1 to the Indiegogo for the Wall Street conspiracy. I can write an article and I can submit my story to Westview News and sign the petition. I don't think that's asking a lot.
Amen. From a personal perspective, and I feel like this is already getting out there, but for all of the shareholders, if you have your money for these specific stocks in a margin account, move it to a cash account. And the reason for that is that legally, and we found, and West Christian has found as well, that they have been not always legal, even on this aspect, but if it's in a cash account, legally, they are not supposed to be able to loan your stocks out. So if you have stocks that are solid as far as not being naked shorted and you're pretty comfortable about that, put them in your margin accounts. Let those be the ones that you trade and up your ability to trade with. The stocks like these that you want to protect, put them in a cash account. And while you're at it, send a letter or an email to your broker saying, I do not want these stocks lent out of my cash account. Legally, they're not supposed to lend them when they're in your cash account, but sometimes they do it anyway. So if you add that extra layer, super simple. It's super simple. So if you get 10,000 investors that all say, no, I'm pulling this out of a margin account and putting it into a cash account, and I do not give you permission in any way to lend those shares out to be shorted, you will put a squeeze on these hedge funds and these people that are doing this to you. So do that, spread the word on that. And that's kind of the focus of the second film. As a longtime activist, as someone who I do deep dives into research. I try to expose the truth as best I can, but at the same time, the most important thing we can all do is come up with solutions. The first film, we weren't able to do that as much because literally it came out right after the collapse of the economy. This time around, with this additional time passing, we have more knowledge. The attorneys have been at it longer that are battling it. Shareholders like yourselves have more information and more knowledge. We want to make this second film to show how, as a filmmaker, I like to describe it as the monster growing and growing more tentacles. It's like that second monster film that you see where the monster has to be bigger than the first monster. Well, unfortunately, this is true in this case. So we'll be writing about that and telling the story of that. But at the same time, I very much want to focus on solutions and a call to action. I'm getting... Okay, I'm going to have to quit saying this now that George is on here with us. I keep saying I'm getting too old to do this, but you've been at it for a little longer than me. So I'm going to have to say, I'm still pretty young. I could go for a while. It change my perspective. But we would like to solve this problem and not have it come back in new incarnations every 5 years, every 10 years. So that's a little hint. That's one thing you can do. Just pull any of these stocks that you're worried about having a naked short position out of a margin account, put them into a cash account, send an email or a written form to your broker and say, I do not give you permission to borrow my shares and put them on the market to be sold short. So it's a good way to put a little extra squeeze on them. And all of these things combined that we do over the next year will put a dagger through the heart of this fraud. That's what our intent is.
Amen to that. Get your shares out of a margin account, put them in a cash account. That's a wonderful start. Do what you can to share awareness. You don't have to go out there and try to explain naked shorting to everybody in your family. But if you could share with them the Wall Street conspiracy, if you could donate to the Indiegogo for the sequel, I have no vested interest in it whatsoever. I'm not being paid or gifted or sponsored in any way. I just think that it's really important to try to do something for our children and our children's children, because I want them to be able to trade on the market without getting robbed, period. So I would thank you again, George, Mark, Christina, Joni, Darren.
I really am a nobody from the UK. The world is full of nobodies. We're mums and dads, brothers and sisters, and we go out and we work and we provide for our family as best we can. For everybody out there that have got family and friends, people in your community, within your country, your states, they don't know what's going on. And this is 5 to 10 million people that have started to learn and understand and have educated. Now, you don't need to go and read 2 years of due diligence, great write-ups by great people. The community that has built is second to none. I've been around a long enough time, been involved in enough things, but I've always paid attention. I've looked and I've watched. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, what party you support, what your politics are. All the things that are used to divide us as people have not affected us as we associate ourselves and call ourselves apes. Now, the reason we've come together is because we found something through Wall Street conspiracy or the buying and holding of shares that is an ungodly act within a cancer of the market that does affect everybody. It affects businesses, it affects jobs, it affects careers, opportunities, possibilities. Rich get richer. A very, very small few get richer, while large population countries, global, lose an awful lot. Now, the message from the films, the message from me today is, please look. Take a bit of time in your busy day to please just look. You don't have to understand the ins and outs of the market and how they're doing it necessarily, but the films will show you that. What you do need to understand is we're losing more than money. There are companies, cancer curing, medical advances disappearing that we no longer have access to. That means people that may have got better, had better treatment, had a better ending to their life, would have been able to achieve that, but for a small few that do something called naked short selling and spoofing and a number of other things that are stealing our money, medical advances, technological advances, and a whole number of things. In time, if you pay attention and you keep watching, we believe we can show you that factually. We can show you that so that you can understand how it affects our great-great-grandkids. Everything is tied together. We just need people to look, get behind this, and please share it so that all the people who do not know have a chance to before something like 2008 happens again. It wasn't market-backed securities and credit default swaps like some films and books have you believe. It was also naked short selling and the act of short selling. Mainstream media will tell you that it's fine. Short selling has a place. Well, if you bought Enron, or you know about the company Enron and it going out of business, that was the #1 company on the planet. The companies we're talking about are not. It's something that the cancer goes after through naked short selling and spoofing that costs us all. Please take time to take a look, please.
Absolutely. And that's how it affects people around the world that don't have any money in the stock market. This is killing companies that could save lives, killing companies that provide entertainment and education and value to the poorest of people all around the world that no longer exist or may soon no longer exist simply because of naked short selling. And things like mortgage-backed securities and credit default swaps in 2008 may be, what helped bring those issues to light, because those were the things that crashed that further helped destroy, the economy and bring those issues to light. The fact of the matter is that they revolve around naked short selling, market manipulation, short exempts, and all the other things with which that retail investors are being harmed by. So in order to enact any changes, we have to share them with our family and friends. And instead of sounding like some whack job and trying to come up with all the facts off the top of your head, share with your family and friends movies like The Wall Street Conspiracy. Donate to the Indiegogo so that they can make a sequel, so that there's more to share, so that people can see that this is still happening. This has not stopped. And us retail investors, we're not leaving.
No.
We're not leaving. We're here to stay, and we need to take back our markets from these criminals. These white collar criminals have a stranglehold on our finances, and we need to change that now. Yes, George.
I want to say something, and I apologize for this because it means somebody else has to do work. I would like to print a dictionary of Wall Street fraud, because I have been trying to learn and understand so that I can say intelligent things. But I must say, I don't have a firm grasp of Wall Street fraud. And I would like you to do a dictionary, which I will print in my newspaper, and I suggest will be useful to you people when you are trying to articulate this crisis. A dictionary of Wall Street fraud. What is it? How does it work?
It's a great idea. Great.
And we can have some great cartoons in it as well.
That's true. How about a meme competition? Can we do a meme contest here?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, we do a meme contest for down the rabbit hole, and people can hashtag down the rabbit hole on Twitter and social media and create memes in regards to the movie and the market manipulation that we're currently seeing. And we will have our wonderful producers and cast here help judge those. And the winners of the meme competition will be featured in the trailers for the sequel to the Wall Street Conspiracy Down the Rabbit Hole. What do you say, Joni and Christina?
Oh, I'm all for that. I think that's great. This is for the public. This is for the global community. So we embrace you. We support you. I mean, like I said, we got so much information just on this launch over the weekend. It was incredible. And we want to tell your stories. We're doing this for all of you. It's the voice of everyone. And I do have one thing I just want to say. I opened with a kind of a dedication to those that aren't with us anymore, that are part of the fabric of the Wall Street conspiracy. But I also want to really recognize those who are still with us, who are actively championing this cause way before I got re-involved again. Their lives have revolved around this. Wes Christian, Robert Shapiro, Suzanne Trimbath, Robert Blakey, Lucy Commissar, and Patrick Byrne. And they have not given up. And their voices are also part of the rabbit hole. They will be interviews in that rabbit hole where, we want to bring back our cast. But it's time. It's high time we take control of this. It's a revolution, but it's the rabbit hole revolution. It's the people's revolution. And we thought long and hard about this for 1 year. Joni, Mark, and I, this is not like, oh, we chimed this up yesterday. We really, really thought about this. We talked with people. We did our due diligence to make 100% clear to our souls that we're okay. We're doing this for all of you, whoever you are out there in the world, whether you're a mom or a dad or whatever you're going through, we're here for you. And we created wscrabbithole@gmail.com or just send us everything you have. Yeah. We're reading it. I'm monitoring this every day. It's our work now. We have agreed collectively that this is going to be our production. Joni, Mark, and I these are our jobs. Just like you all have jobs, this is going to be our job to make this film. It's hard to fast track a film. I mean, Wall Street Conspiracy took 12 years, but there were all kinds of reasons why. This could be done in 2023. There's no question. Mark is ready to hit the road in February to start filming low-key grassroots. If it's on an iPhone, whatever we have to do to get it done, we're going to do it. But the more of the voice, what?
It won't be on an iPhone.
I know, but I'm teasing you. But
maybe some Cinema Verite part may be on iPhone. But yes, I mean, I have learned over the last 15 years, kind of like Joni did. I was filming in Oklahoma during Occupy Wall Street and up at Ferguson during the Mike Brown thing. I've been in the middle of so many things. And what you learn is to travel light and travel cheap, and you get the action. So it makes you much more effective, and it allows you. You won't see me come in with a giant film crew. You'll see me with my cameraman and myself and maybe an assistant who's booking everything, and that's going to be as big as the crew gets. So that's how we work. It's the best way and the most effective way to get the word out. So,
but even still, this all costs money, right? You have to pay the film crew, the editors, everything in between, you know. So I definitely, please, if you can, go donate $1 to the Indiegogo
$1.
campaign.
Yeah, a buck is, if the global community all gave us $1, rabbit hole is done. We're it's made. We just have to do the work. You know, you can't just like, it doesn't just happen. You know, there's a process to all this. So,
that's right.
And it is for the people. It's for the people. And we're talking with Dave Lauer later this week. I've already had conversations with him with We the Investor, and you know, his petitions are fantastic. And the conference he had with Gary Gensler was very informative. We saw maybe some solutions in there. It's hard when we made Wall Street Conspiracy, one of the biggest production conversations was how do we explain this to a person who doesn't have knowledge of Wall Street? How do they understand that this is affecting them? And then with the style of the movie, you know, we brought in my rock and roller friends. We tried to like perk it up, you know, and make it fun. And it's not easy. It's not an easy job for us to compose it in a format that makes it just fun and entertaining, but also I think the biggest thing when we rewrote after the collapse happened, when we were filming, Mark knows this so well, the story changed in our face. I mean, we were filming in New York in 2007, 2008, and it all happened, and we were forecasting this was going to happen. And then it literally happened. So we had to Mark had to come in and rewrite an entire movie. He lived in a hotel in New York to do it, so that we had a story. And that was the heartfelt piece that we never, I don't think any of us ever realized Darren Saunders would have the impact he had on everybody. Anyone I've spoken with, it's Darren, you know, and he's the hero of all the heroes. And I have my little notes here, but now I can't find them, but it doesn't much matter. It's just important that we educate people somehow, some way beyond the media that's putting stuff out right now, because we're not controlled by the media. No one can tell Mark or Joni and I what to say. I'm like the balls to the wall person in general. If as long as it's the truth, I have no fear. And Wall Street Conspiracy had a good budget. You know, it was a moving budget, but we were able to have good lawyers. We had good crew. We had Emmy Award winning crew. We had great writers. And so I knew all along it was the truth. There was, when we had the world premiere in Manhattan, you know, Mark, you were there, you know, with Patrick and Suzanne and Wes. I was freaking out in the audience. We were, you know, I was like, just play, just no glitches, please. But do you know, not one press, and top press in the world, no one said anything negative. It was all positive. I've not had one person ever put down my film, other than I got some weirdo phone call one day at my office in New York. I was at Tribeca Film Center for 17 years. And someone called in and said, I don't like the music you used, or something like really, you know, offbeat. But nobody, not ever have I received, and you know, it's scary going out and doing this. It is. I mean, you know, it's like you're going into like the sea of like, gosh knows what. And I don't know. I feel like, you know, we all have thick skin. We've all been through life. We are real people. Hello. You know, my mom died of cancer in my arms 4 years ago. We've all been through life, you know? And so when you put it in perspective, we just want to make the world a better place. I mean, I that's all I want. You know, if I have a couple more years, I don't know. I mean, look at this week alone, not to bring up media, but like, oh my gosh, all these wonderful people passed away this week.
Yeah.
Like Jeff Beck passed away, and the Elvis's daughter passed away, and this model passed away from breast cancer. These people I'm 54 years old. They're my age. These are women that just dropped dead. So I don't my mom died young of cancer. So I'm not doing this for that reason, but I'm just like, who knows what tomorrow brings. So I'm putting myself out there big time on this one, guys. And, to the world, I'm taking the hits. I took the hits the first time and I'll do it this time, but I'm doing it with Joni and Mark. And without you guys, I would never, ever, ever have I just couldn't do it. And I thank you both for your strength and your activism. You two, I admire. You're so much more than anything I could ever be. I'm just a mom from Greenwich who fell into this because I met Darren. I never, ever, ever, ever thought I'd be making the Wall Street Conspiracy in my life. And I did, and it happened, and it was creative. And I never thought I'd be where I am now. And here I am. So I just want to help. Yeah. I just want to help out and help our kids. I have a young boy, and he's just embarking on his journey in the world. And I don't want to see him messed up by this. Yeah. I don't want any of our kids to have to deal with this. They shouldn't.
Yeah. I'm absolutely humbled and honored to get to be here with you, with all of you, and have this discussion. The level of wisdom and caring in this room right now is just absolutely off the charts. So I would like to say to you, George, thank you very much for helping use your platform at the WestView News to teach investors and people that may or may not know what's going on more about this. If you guys are out there and you're listening, please go to westview.org, check out the newspaper, send them your stories as a retail investor. Let's get them published.
I want the Dictionary of Wall Street Fraud.
You got it, sir.
Well,
we'll work on that
George,
too.
Joni always said, Joni, I want to get back to Joni. Joni, I can't see you, but I know you're there. Beautiful Joni, my inspiration, my hero. Mark and Joni are my heroes, and George and Dusty. And I want to say that Joni always said the Wall Street Conspiracy is the Bible. And, I remember, Mark, you and I don't want to go way off chart here, but remember we were like in some school somewhere, and it was you and I, and the Wall Street Conspiracy was the class lesson. Yes. Do you remember that?
Brooklyn College.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I remember it for a couple of reasons. One was that as you're sitting there and you show the film and you have this full auditorium and there are these young people, and you look up and you go, oh, hell, they're listening to everything that I'm saying here. I better give them something good, but they were so engaged. The other reason I remember is that's the trip. I couldn't remember whether it was the premiere or the Brooklyn College one, but so I went back to Facebook and pulled it up. That was the trip that I found out that I was on the terrorist watch list. So when I tried to fly out there, I was accosted by, it looked like, something from Men in Black and a bunch of TSA agents at the ticket counter, where the guy at the ticket counter said, this guy's on the no-fly list. Well, it turned out it was the watch list, so I was allowed to fly. So ever since then, and I think it was because I worked on the film, I wrote a book that was a specific case of fraud called The Naked Truth, and I was also doing stuff at Occupy Wall Street in Oklahoma City, and I got arrested here for protesting on behalf of Walmart workers. So I just had that. At the time, the Patriot Act was a big thing, and I had that resume. And I was later told that the reason I was probably on it, because they'll never confirm to you that you're on it officially, except that at the ticket counter, they always confirmed it to me. So I eventually just started carrying my book and a copy of the Wall Street Conspiracy and said, this is why I'm on. I'm going to get flagged. Here's how it's going to go down. And then you're going to let me fly. So let's just, but what kind of happened with that was that I think that in the Patriot Act, there's a line that says anyone who is a threat to the domestic or economic security of the United States. Well, it turns out that we have a system, and our economic security, quote unquote, is built on top of fraud. So when we started screwing with the schemes of the billionaires, I was a threat to the economic security of the United States. And so I ended up just telling people, you know, who should be on this? The CEO of Goldman Sachs. So, you know, and I started and eventually all of them went, oh yeah, you're right. And then they patted me down gently. Let's just say that, you know, but that's what happens. You know, you're onto something when you start getting attacked in that way. When your own government thinks that you're the enemy, you know you're onto something. So yeah, that was the Brooklyn College screening that we did where I found that out. And I have not flown in the last few years, but ever since then, I get searched 6 to 8 times before I'm allowed to get on a plane. It's you know, I guess also a badge of honor, but a very annoying one. So, you know,
I could imagine.
Yeah,
So make sure you guys are,
anybody who speaks out about this, you will get attacked. They may make you the offer first, like they did with you, Marcel. You didn't sell out. Well, now expect to get attacked. That's the next thing, you know. So, but that you're not accomplishing anything if you don't make a couple of the right enemies. So here we are. But thank you all for everything you're doing. We appreciate you.
thank you as well. Make sure if you guys are able to go out there and make some memes about Down the Rabbit Hole and the Wall Street conspiracy. Share the information about the market manipulation with Down the Rabbit Hole. Hashtag it on YouTube. Hashtag Down the Rabbit Hole. Sorry, hashtag Down the Rabbit Hole on Twitter, and put it out there so that we can use your memes in the trailer for the film. Be a part of history. Donate $1 to the film, to the Indiegogo if you can. If you watched the first movie, if you've gained value from it, and you would like to see a sequel that is updated, that includes all the most recent things going on in the markets, please donate $1 or whatever you can afford to donate, you know, here to help out. Again, I'm not being paid or sponsored in any way. I'm just looking forward to making a change, just like these other wonderful individuals here. And honestly, I'm honored and humbled just to get to be a part of it, to interview with you all and to learn from you all. So I'd like to say thank you to Christina Copeland, to Mark Falk, to George Capsis and Dusty as well, to Joni Clark and Darren Arnold, all of you guys. Thank you so much. You are truly an inspiration to myself and to many other retail investors. That being said,
thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
you'd like to add before we go?
Me?
Any of you? Yeah, if there's anything you want to add, you know.
Well, I hope we do another show because we have all kinds of things in the, you know, on the notebook here. But I just, you know, there's a lot coming down the little. I mean, it's just we're being flooded with goodness right now and content. So just keep it coming. Just send rabbit hole anything and everything that you think is relative and important, because as producers, you know, there's a big development process here. And I, you know, it's like Madoff is out on this Netflix doc right now, you know, that I've been kind of watching that. And I'm like, wow, you know, how long ago was that? And that was 65 billion that he ripped. Well, aren't we, I think Wes Christian said we're in the quadrillions. Let's talk about George's definition, like the dictionary. I need to Google what is a quadrillion. I don't even know.
Number of money. Yeah, it comes after trillions. It's that ridiculously large.
More than any of us can imagine. So
it's the level we're at, and we're wired, you know, obviously because the Wall Street conspiracy is like a family, you know, everybody's in our loop, you know, everybody, you know, and so this is a journey we're all on together and we're all supporting one another. But it's like somehow the Wall Street conspiracy became like the house. I don't know, you know, it just became the home for the people. And even though everyone's out doing their own thing and talking about it, it seems like the people just somehow trust the Wall Street conspiracy.
That's what we need. We need people to share the Wall Street conspiracy, because like you guys did a great job. You made a fun, entertaining, easily digestible film that shines a spotlight on the major problems in financial markets. And that's what we need. People aren't going to listen if I'm out there spitting financial jargon, or if people are trying to, you know, explain to them what's going on with Naked Shorts or in one particular company. But you managed to encompass in one film and now the sequel, the major problems in the financial markets, and sadly, how it affects people like Mr. Darren Saunders. May he rest in peace. You know, but this is a serious problem. So if anybody out there, if you're listening, if you're watching this, send any information you've got to wscrabbithole@gmail.com. That's their email address, wscrabbithole@gmail.com, and share your story, share your information with Joni, with Christina, with Mark, and go to westviewnews.org. And we're going to have a petition on there soon. And we want to petition more than what the SEC is doing. What Christina said was a great point about what the SEC is doing here, that they're trying to implement change, but those are really more related to transparency in the markets. What we need is to stop naked shorting. We need to stop the market makers from creating synthetic shares.
I just had an idea.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you give an award to that Wall Street firm that does not practice fraudulent?
We wouldn't even have to invest in an award because no one would win it.
But it's a challenge. That's a good challenge to them.
And the fact is that we will do it very royally, and it will look very elegantly. And these companies would compete to be able to be featured in this column. Now, we will circulate the column to all the newspapers. Right now, the New York Times is talking to me because of my internal difficulties. But we have access to all the major newspapers. And so, every year, you will give an award to that Wall Street firm that avoids these fraudulent practices, and then you will have a little section on the bottom of those that are guilty.
Oh, I like it.
It's actually genius.
The smoking gun.
We come at it where we believe that the whole of Wall Street is corrupt. And I don't believe that's actually the case. There's a widespread belief within the community because of what we're fighting. And a lot of people are new, maybe the last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. But there's an awful lot of good people in every area of society and life. And they all get tarnished for different reasons. That's mainstream media's job. What you just done is perfect, because there is companies that also know this goes on, but are unable to stand up and do it. But they can show they're not part of it. They're not part of this cancer that is killing so many different things that we're all losing without even knowing. I think it's a brilliant idea. Well done, you. Well done.
I think so as well.
Yeah, they'll be magnets for stockholders then. They'll become magnets for stockholders because, whoa, you know, instead of a race to the bottom, we've got, you know, a race to the top.
Yeah. They're not criticising anybody else they got to work with. There's no flack comes back on them. All they're actually doing is saying to George and through his newspaper and the awards that we can present, we're good guys, because they're not all bad guys. They're just not brave enough like we are, like the community, 5 to 10 million people that are in the ape community are brave enough to say, this is wrong and it has to stop. They got to work with these people. They got relationships with these people. But George, absolute genius idea. We can actually present the wall that somebody has to prove we're not the bad guys. And the only people left will be the bad guys. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
Okay, and I'm ready to print it. As soon as
Oh, thank you,
put it together.
George. Wow.
Thank you very much.
This is just amazing. Again, the outpouring of support of the Wall Street conspiracy. It's not about me. It's the community. It's the global community, and I have outreach coming from other countries as well. I just want everyone to kind of be aware of that this just isn't like happening in like a little Twitter universe. In New Zealand, Germany, the UK, Nigeria. Since we started I gently started a Twitter account because I don't Twitter personally, but I did it for the film. I thought, well, I'm going to have to do something, I, not that I like want to, but I will. I'm a little shy. I'm shy. I'm a very private person. The movie is the movie. I can make the movie, I can bake the cake, but, so we have like a whole database of global support coming at us. And this weekend we worked so hard just to do what we did. I mean, we know this technicalities of, launching Indiegogo. You don't just push a button, like in the movie when we said the simple click of a mouse, Joni and I were like, very God mouse, please, click and go. These are things that, we don't even have a team. We don't have the funds right now to even have that kind of support system behind us. We will. Oh, and KCSA Strategic Communications, we spoke with them Friday. They had been the PR firm for the Wall Street conspiracy. And we sent them the trailer and we all had a nice conversation and they are so excited. So as soon as we get something together, they're a big firm in New York City and they're global and in London and all over the world. And they know, the film and they're like, let's do it. They're on it. So it's like, it's just nice. And I think it's important that the message that we're putting out there isn't that we want to do this on the lowest budget possible, but there's a reality to this. You can't just, and so that's why we're trying to raise seed funding now just to get moving. And then, we're all, Joni is the executive producer and responsible for raising the money because that's her world of excellence and connectivity and connecting her dots, and that she does so beautifully. And so we have a lot of communication going on outside of Indiegogo for the major production funds. We're just looking for that grassroots money so that we can just get Mark on the road filming because it takes time.
Another idea for you.
Ooh, okay.
I'm going to give you
what would that be, George?
I'm going to give you a full page ad.
Oh, it stopped working. Oh no.
Raise money. Do I have your attention?
You do, Joe. You do.
All right. Now listen to me. But I want in that ad.
Oh no.
I want in that ad a mention that part of the monies will be used to create a dictionary of Wall Street devious practices, and also it will rate, or at least it will say that we're going to create a rating of Wall Street firms and how they respond to the strictures of honest and open trading.
Amen.
But it's a very sophisticated and knowledgeable area of the paper. But if you walk into a Wall Street firm and saying, we're doing this report on how Wall Street firms are practicing business, and we are concerned with the following practices, and we have a little questionnaire here for you to fill out. And then we have at the bottom of it, if your firm does not want to respond to these questions, we will indicate that at the bottom of the completed study. This firm refused to respond to this question.
And
okay, now
Brilliant.
I cannot imagine any executive in a Wall Street firm that wants to receive, and we're going to send it to him by mail, a report about his company that says we refuse to comply with this questionnaire.
Wonderful. That's very generous and kind and thoughtful. Thank you. Thank you, George. I think that would be amazing. And yeah, and I'll see what I can do about getting the community on social media as well to help put that together, to get that, that manipulation dictionary going, because that'll be a lot of fun for sure.
don't forget, I said I'm going to give you a free full-page ad. And you can raise money in that ad. But let's do it. As a matter of fact, I would suggest we do it right now.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you're going,
Yeah.
when are you going to print, George? What, Dusty, what?
5 o'clock tomorrow.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Well, we have
There are two wonderful, wonderful stories on naked short selling. In fact, we got our lawyer through West Christian and Joni and Christina and the crew. And his name's Alan Bullock, and he is one of the top dogs here in New York. And he is also working on this issue of naked short selling and writing legislation and different things. So he's written a wonderful article that'll be in the paper this month.
Brilliant. Great. I look forward to reading that.
Make it clear.
Okay.
Make it understandable, and start off with a hair-raising example of what could happen and what has happened. We gave you one, and we can repeat it. One of our own staffers was a victim. And how much money did she lose?
She went from, she had 37,000 in her trading account. She bought the AMC and it went down to 3,000 and change.
We've got people in our community currently that are down over $1 million simply from naked shorting the stocks that they purchased. And that isn't an isolated few. That's people that invested from their 401ks. That was people that had savings in accounts. They took it out, they put it in, they bought a stock that they liked, and the cancer went after it. So I'm sure you'll be inundated, George. Your offer is very generous and extremely kind, and I'm sure within the community there will be inundated sending you over their stories, and that's what it's about. It's everybody that's in this as well as everybody who ain't. But if we get the people that are in it behind this and then they can share it, you might not think it will make a difference. I've been involved in things previously, Mark and everybody else that you're looking at. We know it can. So don't think you can't, just do. Send it in to George, get involved, spread a word however you can, watch the Wall Street Conspiracy and down the rabbit hole, and then see how it will gain momentum and what we'll achieve. Because in a year or 2 years' time, we could all be sat around a fireplace looking at our kids, knowing our great-grandkids are going to be safe as well. Get it done.
Just 5 days ago, on this computer, this young lady told us the story of her loss. She has children. It's very difficult for her to manage. We're going to tell her story.
Yes, sir.
Nice.
And tell her that we're not leaving. There's millions of people with her.
No good. Statistics doesn't buy action.
Yeah.
Reality buys action. And we're going to tell this story about one of our staffers who lost a considerable portion of her family fortune because of fraudulent stock practices. And then we are going to write a dictionary of Wall Street fraud, and we're going to do every 6 months a review of each firm. And if they refuse to fill out that questionnaire, which gauges and measures their practices, we will print an article and said, Thompson and Thompson refuse to comply with this revelation of their stock practices.
Bravo. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your wisdom. Thank you.
Else. It's no good having a meeting unless you take action.
Amen.
I have a lot of extremely intelligent people who've been involved in this thing for a good period of time, but now you have to take action. Okay? I given you a voice. I am, as I say, 30 minutes from Wall Street. And this questionnaire, which you will send to the directors and to the presidents of these companies, not everybody will respond. As a matter of fact, very few will respond. Very few will respond because they want you to go away. They want you to disappear. Who are these people? How can they demand that we reveal our practices in the purchase and sale of stock? How can they want to measure our performance in response to our customers? But it's not going to last because we're going to take it to the New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
The New York Times. And then they're going to become aware. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be amazing.
Okay,
Yes,
guys.
sir.
Thank you, George.
I am sorry to be so dictatorial,
Don't apologize.
but I've been doing this for 65 years.
You've earned the right.
Yes, sir.
And I have learned. All right, I should shut up. All right, kids.
We hear you, George, loud and clear, sir. We hear you.
Thank you, Dusty. Thank you, George. You guys are amazing.
You have to stop with how real a danger this is. Not to the guy who has $20 million and he says, oh, I just lost $1 million. No, to that little lady who sat here where I'm sitting and lost half of her family money in minutes because she just did not know. You guys have a mission.
We're on a mission.
Have a responsibility. Go to work.
All right, everybody.
2 decades ago, a group of unlikely crusaders exposed massive corruption on Wall Street.
Naked short selling, naked short selling is it's
In
not
2012, my film, The Wall Street Conspiracy, told their incredible stories.
You could actually just make money by selling shares that didn't exist.
And when you counted out all the shares being sold, there was something wrong. There were too many shares being sold each day. There was too much action in the markets.
Just in 2 weeks in July, the fails to deliver were $17 billion.
Everyone knows the problem. We know it's all about money. It's all about Wall Street making money at the expense of an honest stock market.
In Texas, simple version, we call that stealing.
I never thought 20 years later the entire world would still be crying out for justice.
Will someone take action on behalf of individual investors?
20 years later, in the year 2023, the fight for a fair and honest Wall Street continues.
I begin to get bashed by these people.
Can, because that protects them against anybody looking into what they're really doing.
They wouldn't do anything about it because you can't balance the world.
On hundreds and hundreds of small, young companies.
And the more I dug, the more everything confirmed
It's
it.
just two sides, the upper world and the underworld.
So I would say to myself, I'm one of the dirty dozen.
Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not the next day, but someday and soon, we're going to see a revolution.
The run and the harm of this is not over. And as God's my witness, I'm more resentful about something that hurts my children and my grandchildren than I am about something that happens to me. And our responsibility is to make sure that the world is safe for them.